It's the Distracted Driving Podcast, throwing out the status quo.
Hey, it's Sean, and you found the Distracted Driving Podcast. Normally, I have my co-host Rex here with me, but he is finishing up his vacation, so you're stuck with me for the preamble on one more episode. This will be the last portion of my conversation with three friends of mine, Rick, Eric, and Amanda. Three of my fellow industrial engineering graduates from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. This episode's a little bit different only because normally I don't really do any editing on the episodes. I do some post-production and kind of make sure everything sounds okay. But on this one, we sort of got towards the end of our conversation and thought we were really ending the show, but then we kept talking. And so I actually am going to do a little bit of slicing and dicing on this one, just to make it flow a little bit more smoothly. If you're listening on the podcast, you're not going to notice a difference. If you're watching, it might look like there's some jump cuts because, well, frankly, there are some jump cuts. But I think there's some good information here, worth listening, worth sharing with you, and I didn't want you to miss out. Rex will be back next week. We've already got a great guest lined up as usual, another mutual acquaintance of ours. So you have that to look forward to. And in the meantime, here is the last portion of the inaugural Happy Hour episode of the Distracted Driving Podcast.
This is a lot of fun, man. I appreciate you having us all on here.
Oh, we're just getting started.
I don't even have a drink yet.
I feel if we go too long, that Rex will not let us do this again.
No, so here's what we do, though. We break them up. I don't know if you guys know this, but podcasting was actually invented back in the 60s by Lucille Ball. Did you guys know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's because you haven't been listening to the podcast.
I have, though.
Lucille Ball had a show, a radio show, and she would basically take a reel-to-reel tape recorder and go to her friends. She lived in Beverly Hills. She'd go to her neighbors. She'd go other places, and she would just have conversations with celebrities back then and record them. And they would have a conversation that might be 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 45. They varied in duration. But the block of time that she had on the radio, it was a 15-minute time slot. And so she would be having a conversation with Frank Sinatra. And, after 12, 13 minutes, she'd go, "Oh, Frank, this was so great. Would you mind coming back tomorrow?" And then they would start the next episode and just do a little 15-minute segment. So that's kind of what we've adopted here on the Distracted Driving Podcast. I don't care so much for, well, I shouldn't say that. I listen to some long-form podcasts, but I recognize that that's not always convenient for people. So we want to be bite-sized like Lucille Ball had them. And having said that, we don't want to lose out on the conversations. So we just talk to people until the conversation's over, and then we figure it out on the back end.
Alcohol helps.
Well, yeah, and this might be the first. This is the first happy hour edition of Distracted Driving.
Cheers.
Eric, before we go.
Yes, sir.
I do feel like maybe Distracted Driving could benefit from a custom theme song. And, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but we were talking in Slow last week, reminiscing, if you will, about your barbershop quartet days.
That's a completely different topic for a completely different podcast.
Listen, the theme here is challenging the status quo. I'm sure we can work it in. Okay, it's broad enough. So you are an engineer. You were an engineering student. How did a nice engineering student like you get involved in a barbershop quartet?
Well, we're getting a little off topic. It's not uncommon for engineers to be talented musicians. There's a lot of discipline. There's a fair amount of math when you're looking at music. I actually know quite a few ladies and gentlemen that they were both an engineering major and part of the choir or part of the band at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. In my case, I started singing in some sort of organized group when I was 10 years old. Went through junior high, high school. I was part of the Nevada Union High School choir with Don Baggett, which was a very established and well-known choir. We would travel to Europe every odd year. So I gained a lot of experience there. Continued on at the Cal Poly choirs, sang with their university chorus, their polyphonics chorus, and then their vocal jazz ensemble. And while I was there, they also decided to start up a little barbershop quartet that evolved into a group that we called Grand Avenue. And Grand Avenue was able to join the Harmony Society, which those are in barbershop. They know exactly what the Barbershop Harmony Society is. Got to compete at the collegiate level and even placed in the top 10 a couple of times, going to international competitions at Kansas City and Nashville. So yeah, so that's my singing career in a nutshell.
So first of all, I just want everybody to notice how as soon as I asked him about the barbershop quartet, he immediately went into quartet voice. Like all of a sudden, we were talking to Eric, and then all of a sudden, we were talking to Eric.
We're talking to Eric. Hello.
Do you see any connections or parallels between being in a barbershop quartet and what you do today as an engineer?
Saying that you actually bring a good point. There are with a barbershop quartet, you have four different parts. You have the tenor, the lead, the baritone, and the bass. And all four of those, you could call them departments, have a different role to play, and they all have to be very much in sync and paying attention to the other three to be able to create a barbershop melody. And if they're done well, to the point where you're holding your mouths the same way, you're singing the same tone, you can actually create these things called overtones and undertones, which are notes that the singers are not singing, but the the sound waves overlap each other and you actually can hear higher tones come out of four voices. You can actually get seven notes out of four voices because they are singing so in tune. And to bring that back to us and engineering and industrial engineering, if you want to have a truly streamlined process, you're going to have multiple parties, multiple divisions that you need to work together to create, I hate the term, but to create synergy, something greater than the individual parts. So in that regards, it's very similar.
I do feel like corporate America has ruined some terms, that being maybe one of them. But what you described, I think, is really that's the definition. That's what it is. And that's interesting that you went that path, because I had an ulterior motive when I asked you that question. I was actually in my head thinking about a segue to STEAM from STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, and there's a push now to put science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. I kind of like where you went better.
Well, there's that's why we have arts in STEAM, right? Like that's where the overlap. That's where the logic and the beauty come together. And now we're really kind of getting into the high end conceptual idea. But I mean, that's really what we do. I mean, think about the general just like aesthetics and beauty of the things that we each of us individually in our industry are creating. It's very cool.
All right, so I got one thing here. One thing I learned from the med device industry is everything is cross-functional. So you're going to deal with, you got to go know your quality engineer and the people from regulatory and all the different departments and develop rapport with them. So a lot of this is people stuff. You got to be able to disagree, to agree to disagree too, right? I mean, there's going to be situations, we've all had them, right? What are the tough moments we've been in where it was like, man, this is hardcore.
In the context of, we, by definition, industrial engineers, we're change agents. You know, we're looking at things at the intersection of people, processes, and technology, but we're not there to maintain the status quo, in my opinion. So, what is the most challenging position that you can remember yourself being in, and you can interpret that however you'd like, but in the context of, well, okay, the status quo is not going to cut it, so what do I have to do here?
I'll go first.
I'll allow it.
Thank you. So I think for me, the status quo has been, I love the place I'm at. I settle in, you know. I learn the systems. I learn all the people, and you know how to navigate my day-to-day activities. And I don't want to leave. That's a challenging situation because a lot of times there's better opportunities out on the horizon. You got to talk to people, network, and challenge, you know, move on to different organizations. That's what I think personally amplified my career.
Okay, so from a career perspective, I mean, you're looking at it from a career perspective, which is good.
Yeah.
I mean, you've changed companies 1, 2, I think 3 times.
5.
5, 3, 5. Look, listen.
Close.
It goes back to that tape measure thing I was talking about. So,
Yeah.
so okay. I mean, do you ever get to a point where you say, "Well, gosh, I'm not challenging the status quo, so it's time to move on"?
I think when you find the right environment is when you stay. And for Amanda and Eric, they found the right environment, right? So they found a place that they could move within. And same for you, Sean. Like you were able to stay within a massive organization and move within that company. That wasn't in the Bay Area is not that way. So it was me moving from company to company, and I'm kind of glad I did early in my career, and I'm glad I've stayed, or I'm glad I moved enough to find the right fit, and then stayed.
Okay.
Where I'm at right now, I'm coming up on 10 years, and I'm very happy.
Could I disagree with Rick and also agree with Rick at the same time?
Please.
God, I would hope so, because that's really what gets the ratings up.
I'd love to hear your.
Because you know, I did not have I've worked for 4 different companies over the course of my career, and to Rick's point, you know, you want to find that environment that works for you, that allows you to grow, that allows you to flourish, and also have a little bit of fun at the same time, hopefully. You know, I've been in a situation where I started selling equipment, and then I worked for a company for 10 years that installed the equipment. Then I went back to selling equipment, and now I'm back with a company that installs said equipment. And you know, each opportunity has allowed me to grow and to learn and to attribute my gifts and my experience along the way. Um, and it's kind of what Rick's saying is like, fortunately I've had the opportunity to do it in the past and know what I want at this point in my life, and to be able to contribute and at the same time have a team that you can kind of argue with, but also respect at the same time.
Well, Amanda, you've been at the company. You've been there you're the lifer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's awesome. Like you found the spot. But I guess what I'm saying is if you don't find the spot, like feel free to go explore and push the limits of some companies because people will treat you like they want.
The question is broader than just the career, like your career choice or the company choice. And so I want to make sure we're looking at it in that perspective, because that's one portion of it. But also, regardless of where you are, what we do and the decisions that we make and the initiatives that we're involved in are challenging the status quo. So I 100% agree that for me anyway, that I think there's three things I always tell people, and I can never remember all three on the spot. Finding the right culture, that's kind of what we're talking about. Stepping outside your comfort zone and being surrounded with the smartest people you can find. Those are the three things I look for in an organization. And that's from experience, like me looking back going, okay, when was I having the most fun? When was I the most effective? When was I at my best? Oh, I was surrounded by the smartest people I could find. I was kind of outside my comfort zone, and boy, the cultural fit was just good. We all got along. So we've covered that portion of status quo, and we can continue down that path if you want. But I'm also interested in maybe Amanda and Eric, do you have any examples of, hey, I'm at work in the course of my job, somebody's saying we got to keep going straight, and it seems like the path is to go left.
I mean, of course that happens. The thing about it is, where I'm at, it's only very recently where, gosh, I don't know how much of this is. It's only very recently, where we've had as much support as we should for doing the things that we want to do and need to be able to do. And so there have been times, especially in the past, where, we did want to go left, or we wanted to go where we thought the most opportunity would be, and we couldn't, and that wasn't easy. And so, we're kind of talking about, me being the lifer here and, being here for so long. And it's not so much like, yes, of course, I enjoy what I do. And I enjoy like running participants and working, with my customers. But one of the really main things, the reasons that I stayed was location. It's not far from my house. I had no commute. And then my hours are good. I could get everything I needed to get done, but it was flexible. And so then I could do things like, do stuff with the kids and volunteer at the kids' school, which is important for me as well. So that's actually, so a lot of that is one of the main reasons why I've been here for so long. And so some of those three things that you said before, I can only half agree on all of those. But I think that's for another time.
Half agree that those are things that are important, or half agree that you have found those.
That they happened.
That they happened. Yeah. Okay.
There's three things. How do you half agree? You gotta like 3/4 agree or a third agree.
So if I talk about my, immediate group, there's one person that I've been working with for almost my entire career, and she's amazing, and I look up to her every day. Not only as someone that I work with, but as a friend too. And so that's one of the reasons that's the yes, find what was it the first one that you said?
I don't remember what
The
order I
the
said them,
the
but it was find the right culture, surround
the
yourself with the smartest
yes,
people you can find, and step outside your
yes.
comfort zone.
And a lot of that was due to her, and so that actually helped a lot.
All right, LJ,
Well, I'll try and bring
you
you
had
in
some
here,
thoughts.
Shani. So I don't know that I have a specific instance where we were on the wrong track, but I've had several instances where you're working on a project, you're going a certain direction, and then there's an opportunity to go left or right. And some of the team wants to go left, some of the team wants to go right. And there's no bad choice per se, but it comes back to what is the best choice based off of what the customer needs, what's going to be sometimes what's going to be easiest versus what's going to be most cost prohibitive. You take in all of the different business values that come into play, and honestly, sometimes it comes down to a vote. Sometimes it comes down to democracy as to which path you're going to go. But you reach a point where you kind of have to stop. You have to get everybody in the room or on a conference call, and you have to say, okay, here's where we're at. We could go down this route, and the benefits are going to be this, and the costs or the negatives are going to be this, or we can go path B, which is going to give us these benefits versus these costs. And as a team, you kind of have to make that decision of, okay, what will work best for this particular environment? What will work best for the end user? What will work best for the person that's financing the whole endeavor? And make your decision according to that. So I don't know if that quite answers your question, but it kind of gets you there.
Well, that's it for episode 12. I hope you've enjoyed my conversation with my friends Eric, Amanda, and Rick. I suspect that they will be back either individually or perhaps as a group on a future episode of Distracted Driving. We really only scratched the surface, I think. But hopefully the conversation about career paths and a little bit on challenging the status quo and work-life balance. We covered a lot there. Hopefully that was useful to you and entertaining, and maybe we'll do some more happy hour editions of the show. Speaking of which, if you did enjoy this, we really would love to hear from you. So go to our YouTube channel. We've also got a Facebook page now. We've got the Instagram. All of it is linked from distracteddrivingpodcast.com. So if you cruise over there, there are links on the sides of the page. You can interact with us using the social media platform of your choice. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.